Howdy, welcome to the studio. I'm making Command Quest, a puzzle game where you can control anything, and so far I've gotten the command system and a couple of other main mechanics in place already. Here's how I did it. Before we start, if you haven't already seen Devlog 0, where I go over exactly what this game is and what I'm going to be doing with it, then you should probably watch that before we start this video. Alright, let's get into it. The very first thing that I need for this game is a grid-based movement system. That means that objects on the grid will move, collide, and more using this grid. I also need a way to select objects and expose their commands to the player. It sounded easy at first, but I was in for a pretty big challenge. Making grid-based movement was harder to me than making other types of video game movement, but I was able to figure it out. First, I defined the grid, what its borders were, and how big each tile was. And I forced objects to stick to this grid when they were moving. They can't go outside of the grid, and they move in grid tile increments. Next, I needed collision. Every object stores its position and some information about itself in a global list. Then, when an object wants to move, it looks at the list and sees if there's any object in the target position. If there is, it doesn't move to that tile. I also made a system that lets me define what objects collide with what. I made this system with composition in mind. This basically means that everything is made up of little reusable pieces. I was able to just slap the movement piece onto a crate, and suddenly you're able to push crates, no extra code needed. I got a bit carried away and made every object pushable, but I ended up fixing it. So now I have an issue to solve. How can I take an object's actions and make them visible options that the player can choose? It sounds pretty simple, but the thing that makes it hard is that I don't know what these options are going to be, so I can't just hard code them onto the object. So here's what I came up with. Objects have a list of commands with names, and these commands connect to a bit of code on the object. I can define what these are per object, so I don't have to hard code them. When an object is selected, we get all of its commands and we display all of their names. Then we just let the player choose one of the commands using an input on their controller. When it's chosen, the bit of code connected to it is ran. This is pretty flexible already, but there's one big issue. Some commands need extra information, like a position or a direction, and we don't have a way to get that info. How could we do that? To do the right thing in the right situation, we need something called a state machine. This basically just runs code depending on the scenario. In my game, these scenarios are moving the player around, selecting an object to command, choosing a command to give, selecting a location for a command, or choosing a direction for a command. While making this, there were many failed attempts, bugs, and redesigns, but that's the fun of making a game. So, it's officially done. You can control things with your mind in my puzzle game, like I promised. Now that these base mechanics are working, I next need to work on getting a connected world, and I'll tell you more about what that means in Devlog 2. Subscribe to see that, and until then, stay hot.